Right, okay, cool. Guys, welcome to today's special podcast, vlog thing, whatever you want to call it. Those familiar with the channel will remember Gary J. Tunnicliffe. We had you on before for, I think it was, well, we spoke for about 4 hours, but it was a 3 hour segmented podcast. This is the writer, director, actor of Hellraiser Judgment. We spoke at length about Hellraiser Judgment. I will leave that down below in the description box, but you can also find it in my Hellraiser playlist. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about Hellraiser Judgment, and then just generally speaking, about movies, I guess horror movies of this year, but also the future of the Hellraiser franchise, and hopefully you'll have some insight into that, I'd like to think. But failing that, we can always just have a good bit of a discourse on it. Either way,
A good chinwag.
how you doing? Welcome.
Very well. I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me back. It's I just thought, since some time had passed, and we've kept in touch, obviously.
Yep.
Since you revealed your visage to the world, you mysterious figure, you. Since we talk, it got to a point where it was like, well, maybe the end of the year's coming up. We could recap, live and talk about some of the. I'm just always excited when a great horror film comes out. I think all horror fans are always like, is there going to be a good movie come along? And for me, that was Hereditary this year. So, I was excited about that. And also since, it's been some time since my little, effort came out. And, it's been a lot of reviews, some good, some bad. And I thought it'd be fun to talk about that.
Yep.
Because, I think the truth is that's what was exciting for me was, A, because I really enjoyed Hereditary, but B, some of the people who reviewed Hereditary and gave it such reviewed Hellraiser and gave it such awful review also did the same thing for Judgment. So I was actually quite happy. I was like, oh look, they hated Hereditary and they hated my movie. So does that mean that my movie has anything of the quality of Hereditary? Definitely not. But it's nice to see that the blade skewers, all, without, so.
Well, I think what I find with kind of comments that come through, and I mean no disrespect to anyone who has left comments like this, but I do feel that potentially people review things outside of the expectation that the movie is supposed to have. If that makes any sense at all. Because I know I'm just spewing absolute bollocks, but I reviewed Venom and I reviewed it really positively, right? Because and obviously it's not related to horror or anything like along those lines, but it's a great example of a movie which advertised itself as something which is just a dumb bit of fun.
Right.
So I reviewed it as a dumb bit of fun. Did I go in there and did I have a good time? Was I somewhat entertained? Yes. So for me, it did what it advertised itself as and also what it set out to do, if that makes any sense. So I like to review movies in terms of how they establish themselves in their marketing, but also like budget, for instance. You've got to take that into account, and just generally speaking, the tone which they establish in the movie. Because a lot of people look at like Hereditary, for instance, they say it's a slow burn or it's boring. Okay, but you're going to think it's boring if you don't like a slow burn. So you can't really say that that's a detriment to the film if that's just your personal taste and you don't like slow burns. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, I mean,
didn't think it was that slow a burn. I mean,
no.
I was shocked how little of a slow burn it was. I mean, it gets in there pretty fast and starts up.
Well, there's a pivot point, isn't it, where it just goes. Oh right.
Yeah,
okay.
but to me, it felt like the witch was a slow burn.
Yeah.
And to me, the reason I didn't like the witch, and I apologize to people who adore the witch and love it, and I've met those people and had Venom big discussions about it. Why I don't like it, because to me it was a slow burn that never really paid off.
Yeah.
It was I don't mind a slow burn as long as something happens.
Of course.
That I can hang my hat on. But I look back at the witch and go, okay, where's that water cooler moment that I can discuss and go, yeah, it was tone, and then that happened, and it was, apart from a couple of little smaller things for me in the witch. It didn't happen, and I understand it, and I'll sit in the movie theater and be like, oh, this is clearly a bit of an art house movie, and I know that they didn't have a lot of budget, but for me, The Witch, I came out and somebody was like, "What did you think?" And I was like, it felt like a PBS documentary on like the life of, like frontier living in America.
Settlers, yeah.
Like, and it was very realistic. And but I was waiting for something to really, something to really kind of like hang my hat on and go, well, that was utterly terrifying. I was going to use a bad word then, but since my father started watching a lot more podcasts,
you're on best behavior.
I am on best behavior. I'm going to try not to use any F's and beeps and whatever. See if I can do a whole one of these without living swearing. But Venom for me, was interesting. You mentioned Venom was a film that I knew we were going to go and see. My wife, who loves Tom Hardy, all 5'6" of him, I'll tell you a funny story about Tom Hardy in a second.
All right.
But I was very kind of like, oh, Venom's gonna suck. I thought the trailer was dreadful.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a bad trailer. The first trailer was atrocious.
Atrocious. And then the only thing that kind of captured my attention was the comedy of the final trailer with, I'm gonna eat your arms and then your legs and then you'll be rolling in the gutter like a
turd in the wind.
And I thought that was great. I was like, oh, that's kind of Deadpool-esque, kind of quite funny. And then I went to see the film, and I was happily surprised. I was like, we went along for the ride and had a good time.
It's just a bit of dumb fun, right?
Saw it twice. But I mean, it held its own together. I do think it has its problems.
I mean, it's the end sequence. I mean, again, spoilers for anyone that hasn't seen Venom yet, but I mean, the end sequence is just, you can barely make out what the aliens are doing when they're fighting one another, because it's just a big CGI mess, which is fine, because up until that point I was entertained. So you kind of overlook those things. You go, well, it doesn't really matter because I'm having fun.
Well, I think what to me, if someone said to me, why would I go and see Venom? I would say for the same reason that you would go and see Legend. Legend, the most endearing fact of that movie was watching Tom Hardy act with himself. And play the craze and be two very different characters. And to me, that was what was the fun thing about this. Tom Hardy did a good. I wasn't crazy about his accent. I have to say.
He's never been his
Eddie Brock was a bit, doity. Hey, I'm Eddie Brock. It wasn't a great Englishman, but English guys doing American accents is a tricky thing for some people. But clearly, him having fun with that character, and I love it when an actor does a movie for their kids. I think it's fun that, in the same way that, there are actors who've taken roles like Ben Affleck took Batman for his son, and who loves Batman, and Tom Hardy, I know, did Venom for his kid. But I do think the fun stuff was definitely his psychotic kind of ramblings between the other character and the fun nature of Venom. I think when Venom's being at his kind of wicked sense of humor, turd in the wind, or pancreas spleen, sending snacks. That's and those lines are like, can I eat them? And now we eat their faces. He's like, no, you can't eat their faces. That was a lot of fun, and the audience really reacted to it well. So everything else was a bit plug and play. I mean, there were things in it that I was like, really? Like, I thought his girlfriend, his girlfriend and fiance, who clearly they love each other, and they've got this big kind of like, here's the ring and I love you. I mean, she moved on real quick.
Oh yeah. She bunked up like
Didn't
that.
she just?
Oh, unbelievable.
Like, wow,
he's got keys to the house and everything, has he? Oh, right.
Right.
Jesus
she bypassed the whole, I guess that's the modern age and Tinder and everything else. She moved on real quick.
Seems to be. So let's get back to horror then for a minute, and let's discuss Hellraiser Judgment, right? What? Let's kind of talk about Hellraiser Judgment, and then I guess talk about the response, your personal thoughts looking back on it, because obviously you've had time to stew on it as well, which I think will be somewhat interesting. But then also studio's response to you.
Nothing. Zero.
Absolutely
right. Zero.
Well, there you go. Podcast over, everyone. No.
I mean, what's really annoying is the fact that the studio that I made the film for, that I got all this great goodwill at the moment when we were in post-production, and they were like, yeah, you knocked it out of the park, Gary.
Yeah.
And Bob Weinstein calling me personally and saying, well done, kid. Like, first time I've ever had a call like that from Bob. And like, we're going to take care of you in the future. And then the world crashes down on the Weinstein Company. It just goes completely into turmoil. So every exec, by the time the movie actually came out, every exec that I worked with had sent me there. So just to let you know, Gary, I'm going to so-and-so media and I'm leaving to go to another company. And the best person I'd established a relationship with after many, many years, the kind of like head of production for Dimension, had gone off to another company, which did content for 12 to 13-year-old, 15-year-olds. I was like,
nice.
There goes my career.
That's it, yeah. Pinhead
So
wearing rainbow pins in his head. That's what you want to.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they're going to let me do a off the wall, because I several times said, look, I think Judgment's okay, but it's really I'm kind of pulling at the leash here. There's a lot more I'd like to do.
Yeah.
What was interesting to me for the reviews and the people who did like it, and look, horror polarizes, it always does. There's very few horror films that across the board make horror fans happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you've got people that like old school horror, new horror, jump scares, cheap thrills. It's all over the place, and because people are quite set in their ways with what they like, and they like what they like. So someone who appreciates more unnerving atmosphere isn't really going to appreciate cheap jump scares. So yeah, you are quite right. It is polarizing at the best of times.
Yeah, and I knew what I'd made. I knew there was a lot of body horror in it. I knew it was a pretty gruesome movie.
Yeah.
And there were people who reacted very strongly to that, who loved the gruesome, gory nature of it. And there were people who were staunch Clive Barker fans who just went for the Venom on it. There were people who were staunch Doug Bradley fans, as am I. I love Doug as well.
Yeah.
And they went for the jugular on it. But there were a lot of people, and there are a lot of reviews out there, and some name writers who were like, look, this is, I put this in the top 4 Hellraiser movies, or top 3, or even. And I was blown away by that, because my attitude was, having worked on so many of the sequels, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, my attitude was, if I can make a film for $350,000 in a couple of weeks that knocks off Bloodline, which was made for $7 to $10 million, I'm like, that's amazing to me.
No, absolutely.
And there were some lovely people saying, clearly this guy should be given some more money and let to do a bit more.
Yeah.
What was surprising were people who were, there was a lot of what I expected, which was, wow, I really love the Auditor stuff.
Yep.
But I wasn't a fan of the rest of the film. Why didn't you do more of that? And a lot of, obviously, people saying, why didn't you do this and why didn't you do that? To which my attitude was, yeah, I'd love to do that, but I can't afford it. It's like, I don't have the money. I don't have the budget of the Crimes of Grindelwald at my disposal to go and do giant battles with Cenobites. I would do that stuff if I had the time and the resources. Absolutely, I'd really get into it. But, again, luckily, because of yourself and interviews and stuff where I'd kind of laid my case on the line, a lot of reviewers were actually pretty well informed.
Good.
So those who tend to review based on not on a gut reaction of, oh, dude, I didn't, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Oops. What the fuck?
Well, that's it. You failed it. That's it. It's done.
So I'll just go crazy now. Those people, I tended to not be so, I didn't really hear their comments anyway.
Yeah.
But people who gave a considered response were like, I didn't really like it, but I could see that he clearly made it with love, and there was a lot of passion. But to get good reviews from people like Bloody Disgusting and people, and I've got them on my website. If people want to log on to 2hoursinthedark.net, I've got them like a little badge of honor. So when someone says to me, Tunnicliffe manages to dip a toe into the dark, creepy, hallucinogenic waters that Clive Barker does, I'm like, there we go. You know what I mean? My name and Barker's name mentioned in the same frame, that, with a good response. He's very, very nice.
Oh, absolutely.
Or people saying, I think Looper said it best, which was, and they put me on their best of 2018 kind of films that you didn't see, which was thrilling.
Yeah,
and I had so many people send me that. Horror writers and directors in LA were sending me this, going, look, you're on this list. And I'm like, wow. And a little video posted on Looper. And basically what they were saying was like, this film, the 10th in the Hellraiser series, has no right to be any good at all. But it's actually quite good. It's not a great movie, but it's a legitimately good one, and I'll take. That to me is fine.
It's good. I mean, it's a compliment, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, I mean,
look, if you take with the good with the bad, and that's a good review.
I expect that horror films that's the way horror films are.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a plethora now of review sites, and some great ones and some bad ones, because clearly people, who are desperate to kind of like get monetized, money from YouTube, thinking that they're, getting the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, are like, wow, I can point an iPhone at myself and give a review on a movie. And I mean, and it ranges from the 25 minutes deeply, discussing the Hitchcockian style of, a movie to I just watched this and this is good, and there's a man and a guy in it, and he's got a thing and so there's my review. Hit the like button, and subscribe to my channel. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of become like a bit of a niche market. Like everyone can do it, Like I say, there's the high and the lows. There's the Chris Stuckmans, doing some great stuff in you guys and Grace Randolph, and then it goes all the way down to Frank in his basement going, this sucks,
Yeah.
But even those people are like, I got this, and I read some reviews, and everyone went into the movie, going, this is going to be bad, right? This is going to be awful, and then seeing pleasantly surprised. And what was really nice that Paul Taylor got, I didn't see a bad review of Paul Taylor.
No, people genuinely seem to like his performance, which I'm really thankful for, because having spoken to the guy, he's such a nice guy. So
a lovely guy.
Yeah, so it's nice to see him getting good reviews and nothing, not being absolutely flamed like I don't know, I can't even remember the guy who did.
Stephen Smith Collins, bless his heart.
Yeah. So I mean,
when everybody started there, everyone goes, "Look, he's not Doug Bradley," and which is which is a bit like saying,
it's obvious. We can see.
I'm eating a steak. It's not a hamburger. It's like, well, duh, But I mean, people were like, yeah, if another one was made, then we'd happily go on. Again, interesting to see the audience react to stuff that I didn't like, that was made to do by the studio.
Yeah.
I'm watching some reviews and going, yeah, I agree with you. I didn't want to do that. And you want to have that in front of the studio, and the guy who gave the note about a certain thing, where you were like, see, I was right, you idiot, And bear that in mind when you think that, at one point there were several executives who were like, this whole audit thing, should we just get rid of it and just do the whole kind of crime scene thing? That'll be fine, right? And I was like, dude, if I'm not doing the audit, then I'm not doing any of it.
Yeah.
And then people who are genuinely pissed off, that I dared don a makeup and play the character. I mean, really,
a lot of people seemed. I mean,
like, oh, Annie plays the audience, like, ooh, like, really? And it's like, okay, well, I didn't do a good job. And they were like, well, he does a good job, but really? And I'm like, it's not like the first time a director has put himself in a movie. And it's not like I haven't acted before. But it was like they just wanted to hate on everything. So it was kind of amusing, But what was, again, endearing to me was the same people who, ridiculed and ripped apart Hereditary, ripped apart Judgment, which made me feel a lot better. Because it's like, oh, well, if you can rip apart that movie, which I thought was the best horror film, if not the best film of the year for me, with a absolute, barnstorming kind of like twisty, turny, change in the middle that just kind of threw everyone for a loop. One of those, again, water cooler sequence where you go, have you seen that movie where, 20 minutes in, Jesus, I mean, what happens?
Yeah.
To Toni Collette, who, if isn't nominated, it's should win an Oscar without a doubt, but if isn't nominated, there's something clearly wrong, and the Oscars are more screwed up than I already thought they were. Because, I mean, there is a performance that it goes, it's not like you watch an arc of a movie go, oh, she goes from like, from A to B. She goes A, B, C, D, E, F. I mean, it's like she plays, distraught, sad, crazy intense, melancholic to all out, scary as hell, and does it brilliantly and never, I mean, I saw comments where people rag on, oh God, his name's gone out of my mind, the father actor Usual Suspects.
Uh,
Really, am I going to do this? Am I going to blank on
Gabriel Byrne?
Gabriel Byrne, the great Gabriel Byrne. People have ragged on him saying, "Oh, he's just doing a, he's just kind of like cashing in a paycheck and doing nothing." I think people, it's like, guys, Tony Collette's doing such a big, bold performance that it's a testimony to him that he doesn't try and ramp up his performance to try and keep up with her.
Yep.
He's the you've got the son on one side who's in a spiral. You've got the mother who's doing this, and Gabriel Byrne plays a brilliant fulcrum of the stability of the family house.
That's his purpose in the film, essentially.
So it's like, don't knock his acting ability. Clearly, it's like, just because he's not, chewing the
hamming it up or anything like that.
Yeah, and there's nothing in there for him to do. And when he does do it, I mean, I think if you watch that amazing dinner scene,
that's a great scene. It's an awesome scene.
Look, I don't know how many viewers know what acting scenes or acting schools are like, or when you go and do a scene and you do it, if you go to, acting schools where you have to do your scenes each week. If you watch a show like the Kaminsky Method, non-acting people will understand what it's like to go to acting school where you do your scenes and prepare them. If there aren't people who are doing that scene in acting schools right now, which they are, because it's a great scene to do, It's, don't you talk to me like that, you little shit. I mean, it's just a great scene, and there's, to me, that's the epitome of horror, is that scene is horrific. It's horrifying, right? Yeah. It's horrifying. You can see it in her eyes, The son's like, "What have I done to you?" And she's just unloading. Gabriel Byrne in that is brilliant. He's just got that. If there isn't anybody who sat at a dinner table and felt that way, or sat in a situation where you're in an uncomfortable moment between two friends who have an argument, husband and wife right in front of you, and Gabriel Byrne's doing that, I just want everyone to get along and be friendly. And why isn't it like it used to be? And he, I don't think I can eat anymore, and I feel sick, and it's just, you feel the sorrow in him. And then it goes to some very, very bizarre places. So, yeah. I mean, look, the power of a movie is good. I was in Kentucky shooting a movie when it came out, and I went to see it and suffered through the last hour of it in agony because I wanted to go to the bathroom so badly and couldn't leave the cinema. Because unlike, watching a Jurassic Park movie where it's like, oh, well, if I leave, maybe someone will get eaten by a dinosaur or something, like, or T-Rex is going to show up. I have no idea what's going to happen, so I can't leave. So when the credits did roll, I literally hobbled, bent double to get to the bathroom to finally pee, because I couldn't leave.